Everybody's been lucky to have many contested elections.
And they're all passing?
Years. Yeah. When they're starting going through the records.
Does anybody have any problems
voted for it.
putting them all together as a consent
They
agenda?
voted on it.
No presentations necessary.
It's kind of sad.
It's gonna be a quick meeting.
Yeah.
tonight.
All right,
You're good to
you
go.
good? Okay, well, I don't know if Don's gonna make it or not, but we'll go ahead and get started regardless. And perhaps over here. All right, so thank you everybody for being here and welcome to the Parks and Planning Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And luckily we got some decent weather. It's foggy, but at least it's not icy, so that's a win. But we'll go ahead and get started by this. So thanks for being here again once, everybody, and let's do roll call.
Chair Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Clark. Here. Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni. Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
And Councilmember Flasher. And we have a quorum.
Okay, very good. Well, let's move right into approval of minutes from the committee's meeting on Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. To have a
Make a
motion.
motion to accept them.
Got a motion, got a second? Councilmember Rottenberg. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I just noticed on page 5, under Partner Park, that I couldn't remember, and I didn't go back to my notes, but if we had changed the number of people at that time, it does say under number 2, Partner Park, and 2 at-large residents from each of the remaining wards. I was thinking that it had changed at that point to just 2 at-large residents from the remaining wards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't gonna do all of yours.
That's great.
Because that would have been a lot.
That's a good catch.
And then I still see on when I try to find the approved minutes under Planning and Park, there's quite a few that don't have on the website, that don't have the approved minutes. On the link, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll look into it. Do they show the draft minutes?
It
no,
just, it doesn't
okay.
have any minutes shown.
And I think you're referencing the tab on the homepage that you go to agenda minutes, and then you go to the particular committee and it'll show that it has a video posted and there should be minutes associated with them. I apologize, it's probably something that just gets forgotten in
Yeah.
kind of the crush of things.
I'm sure, and probably the only person that looks at it.
Actually, years ago, we got a question about that, so I'll ask Travis to see if he can get something in there.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
checking and.
You make us look really smart.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll get that correction from the department on those minutes, and then, do we need a motion to make that correction, or is that something you could just do?
You just strike it.
It's just
Good, okay. All right, well, with that being said, any other further discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Without any further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstain? Okay, very good, that approves, or that passes. Do we have any public participation?
We have no attendees on Zoom, no one here.
Nobody here, okay. Moving right along, we will go to action items and start with the planning matters and items ready for consideration. And the first one is the reoccupancy permit programs development for the rental properties. Public input session, all wards, Ms. Ripito.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we will start off tonight's meeting with a subject you are all very familiar with, the city's reoccupancy program for rental properties. This has been a subject of discussion over the course of the last several meetings, and although the committee has been pleased with the general direction of the program and associated process, there are a few items that still needed clarification and or some revisions on the documents that were attached to the last packet. So at the committee's direction, revisions have been made to the drafted documents that were previously provided as per your suggestions. Text amendments have been discussed with City's legal counsel. Revisions were made and sent back to the city attorney for further review. So we're still going back and forth about that. And there are a couple sections that they wanted to address that haven't been revised yet, but all of those, we have time before the legislation needs to go before city council. So we have time to work through those kinks. But he felt very comfortable with the program and with what we were asking and trying to do overall. Additionally, the department has provided a draft of an informational brochure that we would have available on the website and in the new resident packet and here at City Hall. I have it up here. So essentially it would be a trifold brochure. This is, again, just a very rough draft. It was just kind of to give you an idea of how, we intend on putting the word out. But we can add any information we want to it, but thought it was important to have the right contact information for the right parts of the process, as well as like a QR code for more information. And so, yeah, so that's a work in progress as well, but just wanted to give you an idea of one of the many ways that we intend to get the word out. And this goes through like, a short checklist of, commonly missed items as requested, but the more extensive list will be available on the website. Just didn't want to stick it in a trifold. So that being said, the department feels this is ready for the next step in the process, which would be scheduling the first community meeting and or determining if more than one meeting would be necessary or desired. I think the original inclination was to have one meeting for those people with a vested interest, like the apartment complex managers and things like that, and another one open to the general public. But, it's hard to guesstimate how many people would show up at one or both, and it could just be giving, presentation to a handful of people at each of them. But having a Zoom component would allow more access to people for to be able to make it to the meeting that couldn't come in person. So the department's thoughts were that this meeting would be held in the evening, probably around 6:30 or so. But we're open to suggestions on the time. We were trying to make it after, people had a chance to get here. It would be open to the public, hosted at City Hall and via Zoom, in hopes of encouraging more attendance, participation, and being able to have a meaningful conversation with anybody that might be interested. At this meeting, we were thinking that Mr. Vunich would give an introduction and, a brief overview of why, why we're doing this, why now, and that such thing, and then would turn it over to myself and I would follow up with the how, the process, the actual, how you get from point A to point B. And then end with an opportunity for questions and answers. So at looking at the city's calendar and trying to plan around all of our other meetings, the department identified the following potential dates for a meeting. One of them would be Thursday, February 29th, leap year. We could celebrate it. And the other one was March 7th, 2024. And so once the date's confirmed, it will be advertised through any means possible that we have, including the city's website, social media. You can even post something in City Hall. And the city will contact directly anyone that we can or have the information for, like our apartment complex management and things like that, as well as the real estate community. And so with that insight and direction from the community, adjustments can be made, to any of the documents that we have. We might end up, changing the legislation if, after discussion. And so the goal is if we set this up for one of the dates that we have listed, it could be brought back to the committee in the March meeting with any kind of revisions that we need before potentially going on to the full council. And that being said, the department wouldn't encourage moving forward if it's not something that you're comfortable with or don't feel like we're ready to move forward with. But ideally, we would like to have the meetings while we have this group that's been discussing this for so long as part of the public meeting, and also to be able to go through the revisions because you have more familiarity with the subject, and given the election in April, there's might be some changeover, and it would probably be easier to get this ball going now. And so if the committee finds the clarifications and revisions are sufficient, the department would request the committee's support and moving forward with the next step in the process, which would determine if the city should hold more than one meeting, or we could hold one meeting and decide after, depending on the turnout there, and when it should occur. And if one of those dates and or the time would work, then we could move forward. So that concludes the department's presentation, but Mr. Vinish and I are available for questions.
Okay, so tonight we're just looking to discuss, make sure the committee is on board, and then schedule the meeting or request further changes.
Yes, to, present it to the public,
Okay.
present it to the community and get feedback on.
Okay, so with that being said, does anybody have any, Councilman Rottenberg and then Councilman Dowd?
Uh, Mine's a real easy question. Could you go back to the front cover?
Sure. Maybe. There we go.
So when I first looked at this, it took me a few seconds before I noticed that this covers rental property only down at the bottom there. And I guess I would just throw this out to my committee, co-committee, I can't get the proper term out, other committee members to see if they feel that maybe that should be a little bit more noticeable.
Yes.
I would almost suggest putting residential rental occupancy
Occupancy
permits.
permit,
yeah.
Rental,
Yeah,
right under between residential and occupancy big, so
Sure.
it's clear.
I'll discuss it with our city attorney. Like, yes, I agree. I think we can definitely make that more bold and more visible. He
Yeah.
encouraged to use the term non-owner occupied because it covered.
In case you,
okay.
in case you weren't renting it, you were giving it to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
And
want it to be non-owner occupied, then.
Had the experience of, maybe catching someone in the act of renting a property, but I mean, like, it's impossible to prove, but there's somebody living there and I don't know if there's money exchanging hands or a lease,
As long
but
as it's not the owner.
yes, so not.
So maybe make it, say non-owner occupied
Uh-huh.
only, but in a bigger, bolder fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the very front cover.
Everybody's gonna react to what they think they said, it's not what.
You want it to be clear before they even open it.
Yeah.
Sure,
Mhm.
and maybe just put it in the title, non-owner residential occupancy.
I think that
permits.
would be
Yeah.
really, really.
Whatever the most bold and biggest.
Yeah.
way.
It's just gonna say non-owner occupied residential occupancy section.
No, because I think to Councilman Rottenberg's point, I mean, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna get hyped up about it initially when they're just gonna
Yeah.
get apprehensive, and then
Sure.
they're just gonna make the assumption that it's all
Like.
We'll have Elliot
I always
Davis out here in a
why do I
heartbeat.
have to have it
So
on?
we'll just end up, hopefully by making it bold enough, we can
Catch it,
diffuse a significant amount of people that will just come in guns blazing right off.
correct. Yes. I would say So, yeah.
Good suggestion.
Right, Councilmember Dodwell?
The only thing, as I was going through the text on the title on this page for when an occupancy permit is required, probably need to put the is in there, lower left-hand corner.
Yes, you're correct.
I haven't read the rest of all the text, but
And an occupancy permit required. Right? Very good. Good catch.
and then if we're gonna change the title on the front cover, then let's just make sure that you use the same kind of title under that contact us category too.
Yes, and on the application and on, Yeah,
just
all
not
of
own it
these-
Really big.
yeah, everything that we have. I went through and started changing the sample ordinance text amendment and
Okay.
going through and changing everything from rental to owner occupied
Mhm.
is not as easy as you would think.
It should be,
But,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah, I.
work
I
in
agree.
progress.
The non-owner should be very pronounced and very non-confusable. You can't confuse it.
Yes, so we will definitely go through and make those more clear. I also figure, putting something like this up during the presentation, we can get feedback from people,
does, yeah.
you know, as to what would be helpful to them, you know, as far as information on there.
And then one other thing I had was the visuals of houses.
Mhm.
Are we talking about apartments and houses?
Anything
I
that's,
thought we were.
yeah, anything that is
Let's
not,
make sure we get an apartment complex on the front cover then, or
Okay.
somewhere, so that people that are in renting apartments, so that those larger facilities know they need to go through this process too.
Councilman Rambo?
Those were some good catches, guys. My only thing is, it's a good looking brochure. Did you do this, or do we have some graphic person that's been, you did a great job. What I would suggest though is the white font just doesn't stand out like
Yeah.
the black on white. And I was hoping that you could either put it in a light colored box and just use all black font,
Okay.
or at least, or make it bolder somehow and more legible, because it kind of fades into the background, you know, on the black parts, and the white is kind of intense in the center. And I know it's different pages of the.
yeah,
trifold,
that's no
but
problem. It's a bit more clear, like in the actual brochure than on
Yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe it's just me. I'm sensitive to the fact that I need reading glasses.
well, you know, these get scanned in, so it's not even true to color, you know,
Okay.
but yeah,
People
no,
Consider that. Consider the,
People
consider
looking at
the
their phone.
background.
For sure.
That's very good work, though.
Yeah.
thank
Yeah,
you.
it's really good.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Councilmember Clark?
Thanks.
Just nitpicking again, but does it say and municipal occupancy permit?
Oh, it does.
I just figured you probably stuck the municipal in there after it said
I
and.
think that you are correct. Nice catch.
So it sounds like everybody's pretty much on board with moving forward with this, with these minor corrections. So is there a preference to the February 29th or the March 7th date?
I'd just like to ask a few more questions
Yeah,
if
go
I could. Do we know how many multiple apartment owners we have in the city? How many? What we'd say an apartment complexes? Because those are gonna be the ones that I think will be most interested in knowing what they're gonna have to do. Do we have a list of how many of those are? I'm sure the fire department does. But I think those are people that you definitely would want to send a letter to, because they'll be the most affected. In order to, and they'll have more technical questions than a lot of the other single homeowner would have with that.
They'll be a whole lot harder to reach as well, the single family homeowners, than
Yeah.
rentals, because we don't.
But if you have it to the point that they start picking and telling you how these different apartment complexes don't take care of their property,
Sure.
then you want to be able to say, no, they're all under the same provision and everybody's under there in order to do that. That would be, and then I would really think, and I know you're trying to, but we need to get to the trustees of all of the homeowners associated, because I know they're dealing with these issues because they don't know how to get anything collected and how to do that. And then maybe, I don't know whether it'd be worth, just from informational standpoint, City Village Management Company is asking them if they have better contact information for trustees that are within the city of Wildwood. Because they've got all the plat numbers and they kind of are behind the scene. And that's why a lot of the trustees don't want you to know who they are, is because they've already hired City Village to manage it and they want to screen out all of that stuff. But I think the trustees and the big apartment complex people would be the prime audience to try to figure out to get them at the meeting. And we used to have really big meetings with just the trustees, for the subdivision. So I think that's a really interesting group. It's just if you have an accurate list or of the interest of those people that would want to come and
We have a
just see.
kind of accurate list. Like we do have trustee contact information that yes, and most of it we have emails for, so it'd be relatively easy to send something out just to notify them.
Good.
Yes. And so-
Melanie, do you mind if I add a piece there?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Galani. In this case, I just wanted to, with the HOA getting contact information, just wanted to point out on our homepage on our website, there is a spotlight currently. It's the HOA update form spotlight. So if you are aware of any HOAs, we've actually gotten quite a few updated contact information from different HOAs since we've launched this. We've pushed it a little bit on social media, but if anybody, I could send that link out to everyone as well. But if anybody knows a trustee that hasn't necessarily updated it, we have a nice slick form on the website where it can be submitted and it automatically gets put into our updated list. So should be making that list even better day by day. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas, because I was gonna mention that. That
We
form's
put out a
nice.
lot of effort.
Mhm.
No, I
And
think it's
sometimes it-
really good. Keep it close.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
It's loosely related. Yeah, Tom, that's a great move. I saw that form. I think it's a great idea. I'm hoping we get capture this and it should be readily available in your YouGov or something like that, right? The HOA information? Is it YouGov? What's that?
MyGov.
Yeah,
MyGov.
MyGov.
We do have some of the
Yours,
contact
mine,
information in there, but we have a list online, that we've.
So it's available now?
Uh-huh.
And we're just improving that list. And
Yes.
it's on the city website, so everyone, it's publicly accessible. Can we consider taking that further? Like, I'm a landlord. I have my aunt would haunt me if I sold her home, so I rent it. And I'm happy to participate in all these programs and so on and so forth, but if I transition, my renter's been there forever, but if I transition to a new one, it's on me, and it seems like there could be a better, track the utility bills or something like that and see when that have you been thinking of, I don't know, we've thought some about it because we talked some about it, but I don't know what the process is for that.
So in
We
this
rec-
case, oh, sorry about that, Melanie. Do you mind if I pick up on that one? With your permission, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick heads up too on that. We do get a list from, it's not every utility, but it is Ameren. Ameren provides the city with an updated list of people that pretty much have turned on a utility that month. And in that case, the fire department also receives it. In this case, we actually had an issue with getting December's data. So they're working on getting that bug fixed. But for the months before that, we've never had an issue. So typically, that's how we track our new residents and do our new resident packets. And in this case too, we could cross-reference and say, okay, if we know that these certain addresses are going to be made up of, residential and non-owner occupied, so it's an apartment building, then we could be on the lookout for those specific addresses along with, it might be a little bit more tricky if it's a normal standalone household that comes in and someone buys that property, or if someone rents it, that data might not show which one it is, but we could identify some repeat offenders, if you will, some places we know are rented, and look out for that as we get that data. Melody, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't. That was exactly what I was going to say.
Just as a sidebar, Ameren is the best source because regardless if you're in a large lot area or not, everybody has electricity. Not everybody has public water, gas, sewer, etc. So it's a very good resource.
Go ahead. Councilmember Donovan?
I'd just like to make a motion that we have community meeting on February the 29th, and then if we have to, we can throw another one up on the 7th.
Okay.
But
Okay,
I'd keep it open to any and all comers, trustees,
Yeah, any resident.
building owners, or homeowners that are renting their house.
Would we, since we do have some mailing addresses for those, but in addition to posting it,
Mhm.
should we mail something to those property owners we know that are landlords, just to reiterate with them that this is serious,
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
and
can
it's
be
not
automatic with the YouGov, with your program.
Mhm.
This can become, it can get better all the time and it
Yeah.
can become an automatic process.
Yeah, well, and once we have, once it's in the system, for years, it's easier to keep track of.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's harder when you're first starting out and don't have the information already at hand.
Yeah.
Well, Deer Management pointed that out. We didn't have information on most of the HOAs and so on
Yeah.
and so forth in that area. So hopefully we'll get better on that.
Councilmember Marshall, did you have something?
I was just gonna second the motion if you, but then I do have some more tweaks when we get past the setting up.
Okay, so we got a second on the motion.
Good.
All in favor of the motion or any
Aye.
discussion on the motion?
Discussion on the motion,
Yeah.
the 29th, just the timing of it. We need to be remembered that we have a Department of Zoning, zoning review that evening too, at like 5:30, I think.
Well, if we did the meeting at 6:30, that would give us time to be done with that and then have the meeting at 6:30. We can just work it out. Or we could even push it off till 7 if you think that would be better. So the time is,
6:30.
I think I think an hour usually is.
yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Okay. So 6:30, and then Councilman Marshall, did you have any other questions?
Mine are more about the whole process, so we could go ahead and vote on
Okay,
this.
so let's, with no further discussion, all in favor of the motion for February 29th at 6:30, please say aye.
I,
Any opposed and any abstentions? All right. It's scheduled.
Excellent,
All right.
thank you.
Councilmember Marshall on,
So just a couple more dumb questions after reading this 2 or 3 times. Doing a great job, though. I mean, this is a big deal. I don't think anybody understands how difficult this is to try to take care of rental issues.
It's true.
But several times during reading, it talks about home inspector, county inspector. And I guess my question is to really clarify. The county inspector is the one that will be going in and doing the inspection.
Correct.
And through that whole process, are they also the ones, as you get on to later down that in the ordinance talks about issuing warrants for not adhering to that? Will that be the county inspector or does that come back on the city?
That would come back up, well, I think with county, we go either way on that.
It just seemed a little confusing as you tried to read
Sure.
through it. Who was really, who's gonna take the
That's-
blunt of the administrative challenges for this whole thing?
That's definitely a conversation, like that's part of the ongoing conversation with our legal counsel and one of the things that they wanted to handle writing, so there
We
are
all
a
know
lot of
that there are
revisions in
people out there who just refuse to pay a fine. They just refuse to do this. So when you get into
Sure.
something like this, you gotta put the teeth behind it. You're gonna
Absolutely.
get blamed for it regardless, one way or the other.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason for having the owner, the occupant, the tenant, for having everybody responsible for it is so that there is some sort of, there's at least somebody that you can tie to it for one. And then there is also a section in here about, multiple offenses,
Yeah.
in which that we can just go straight to fine of $20 a day for every day that you're in violation, which doesn't sound like a lot. But it, generally with the Ameren list, we get that 30 days or so, sometimes longer after somebody's moved in to a place. And so we don't even catch it 30 days out and 30
But
days.
that's the kind of process that I guess scares me, that how much staffing is it gonna take to keep up with this? Because if you don't keep up with it,
Sure.
it just becomes another piece of complaints by everybody. So if we know the people that are already doing this,
Mhm.
and we know how many hundreds of rental properties that you have changing hands, it's not like we couldn't figure out how much it's gonna take to do the administration of it.
Correct.
Because I think you're gonna find it's really challenging for people who don't know the difference between a city and a county. And so, to be able to make it really, really clear that the very first thing you have to do is to go to the county for this inspection.
Uh-huh.
Nowhere do we say what the cost is with the county.
So that, yeah, I wanted to confirm the cost with them and I believe it's $97. And I did have that on, I think I added it to the FAQs, but yes.
Then we
So,
have,
and that was
we
another
have
thing.
costs to the city at 2 other places different.
I had only changed
So
one.
I just think that when we put it out there, we get ready to talk, we need to know exactly
Sure.
what it's gonna cost them to the county.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I know it says, to wait for to do, and that, I think that's all good, but I think we just need to be right up front. That's what the cost currently is, because it could
Absolutely.
change. So, if we do that. But then when you get into page 4 on the City of Wildwood form, it talks about a fee of $25.
I missed one.
I didn't print, it's just page 4, I know it. It's the form that we worked last time with who the occupants were and,
Oh, the FAQ.
no, it's
No.
actually the application.
Oh, the application.
And
Oh,
it says $25 City of Wildwood. fee.
Oh.
We would
Mine
change
says
that.
50.
Does it say?
Mine says 50.
Well, there's another one where it says 50, but on that front application on page 4, it says 25.
This one?
Look to, yeah, to where it says
Mine-
pay.
Mine says 50 down here at the bottom.
Yeah, I've got 50 on that.
Then under the. There's then another one under the city cost of $50 under planning and zoning tab. There's
Okay.
a signature line, says planning and zoning, and then it says $50, but the one said 25.
Okay,
I
I,
didn't-
I will double check everything.
I just think we just need to be upfront and know that it's
For sure.
$97 and it's $50.
Yeah,
So that they
absolutely.
know right up front what that cost is.
Absolutely, and there are other like inconsistencies that I need to go through and do a thorough search on, like when we were discussing this with legal counsel, just as far as the non-owner occupied. You know, I think I caught a lot of them throughout, but we'll do definitely a once over, and most of these documents are not gonna be presented at our public meeting.
I understand that. I
So,
just, but
yeah.
there's such great work done on it. One last week and then I'm gonna get off the
Sure.
dead horse. When we talk about all of the compliance and all of the codes that this is to cover, swimming pools, all this kind of stuff. Nothing on there talks about septic, well, and solar.
So I
In the
believe,
ordinance write up about under the county inspection and all that stuff. We talk about the checklist. It says sewer and wells. But nothing from an ordinance standpoint specifies that it's anything other than the stuff that's listed in the older county inspection stuff.
oh, so the ordinance wouldn't address the specific things that are being inspected. I mean, it's anything that's on the property, you know, can be inspected. And, you know, it's one of those things that as far as the inspectors with St. Louis County are concerned, a lot of them are not professional septic, you know, and so we can require, like inspectors will require, you know, somebody to sign off on this if, you know, there's a question about it not being in compliance, but yes.
It'll only be if they say that they think there's a problem though. Or will it be, everybody will have to have an approved sewer system company do the inspection for the rental
We
property?
can go either way.
I'm just asking a dumb question. I think we have more wells and septic systems and now solar systems that people will question, well, does that include that or not? Or it doesn't. We just need to know whether it is or not.
Yeah, we
and
can
how to explain it.
specifically put on here that, you know, these need to be certified by, you know, a licensed plumber or whatever happens to be.
Cause I mean,
Yeah,
you're just gonna be
the
adding
professional.
more and more money to those inspections. And that's where I think you get to the point where people think you're getting past the nickel and diming inspections. You're forcing a lot of money on a rental property that,
Sure.
And it does say on here, building, swimming pool and spa, residential, existing building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, explosives and property maintenance codes of the city.
that would,
Explosives.
that would be inclusive of sewage,
Yeah.
sewer or well or
Well, and on
solar.
the checklist, I added septic systems and drain fields as well as wells and solar
No,
energy
it's
systems.
great there. I'm just saying it didn't tie with the other part of it. And maybe we won't have it do that.
No, like I would, like, you don't wanna have everything listed out specifically and otherwise it's gonna be as thick as, you know,
But
the
is that-
residential code.
Is the county inspector gonna be looking at the drain fields and the septic systems or
They generally inspect, if it's there, it's supposed to be inspected,
They
but you
will.
know, they're not necessarily.
so to
Professionals in that.
Councilmember Marshall's point though, I guess what we're trying to avoid is that the county is, so the only thing that's gonna be inspected is anything that the county inspector is qualified to inspect. Like, they're not gonna say, oh, you have a septic system, you need to call out a septic company to do this, that's gonna cost another $100 or. It's
We can-
basically the only inspection is gonna be from the county inspector and anything outside of his purview won't be considered.
So just from doing inspections, like, in my once, long time ago past, if I saw something that I questioned, I mean, I was not an electrician, I was not a plumber, I was not, if it was in like a question in my head, like this doesn't look right, you know, double lugging, something like that, I would have them have, you know, I, on the list of corrections, have certified electricians sign off on this, have certified plumbers sign off on this. And so, you know, if in doubt, because I'm not a professional in that capacity. And so St. Louis County does the same thing.
Okay.
And.
I guess that's, that I don't
Yeah.
disagree that that's gonna become an issue because people are gonna be like, so it's basically up to this individual's. Like, I'm paying this $97 for him to come out there, but then if all of a sudden if he's in a bad mood or sees something he doesn't understand, now I gotta go get another certified professional that I gotta pay to come out here and sign off on it.
That's not abnormal from an inspector that you pay to come out and do an inspection on your house, for like the sale of a property. You know, they often, you know, say that you need to request a certified, you know, electrician to sign off on this panel and whatever, like that's.
Yeah, but on a sale inspection, that's voluntary. Like you're
Oh.
choosing to have the inspector come out and then you choose to pursue anything he recommends.
Sure.
I'm just saying, and I'm not disagreeing with it, I'm just saying, being a devil's advocate, this is something that we're forcing upon the homeowner to have to do, so to say, it's 97 and 50. However, it could end up being hundreds more if he sees plumbing and electric, I mean, just to get a plumber
Well,
out there
and
for
for-
30 minutes be.
For example, like when it comes to septic fields, I believe you're supposed to have them inspected every 3 years or so anyway, so 3 to 5 years. And
And I'm not saying I disagree with the fact that we wanna make sure it works, but to Councilmember Marshall's point, I think we need to be very clear about what our expectations are, to say like, this is what it's gonna be 97 and 50.
mhm.
However, if the county inspector sees electrical or plumbing or septic related issues, they could require a further
We
inspection.
could just require it. We could say, you know, if your, you know, septic system is supposed to be inspected every 3 years to 5 years, we could require, you know, proof of maintenance, you know, in the last 3 years.
I just think in what we're gonna have the public available to discuss and see, we need to lay that out so
Sure.
that they're fully aware that we
Yeah.
made, this is the minimum 97 and 50, and this is the minimum expectation,
Mhm.
assuming you pass everything. But you may be required to provide additional verifications or validations
Mhm.
or inspections if
I think.
it's determined by the county inspector that there's deficient, whatever, just so that we cover our tails with that to where it's not like, we can't get accused of, you know,
Yeah.
picking on certain people that.
Well, and I did include
help.
in the language that proof of inspection may be required in the FAQ or in the guide as far as the septic system and the wells.
Okay.
So there, it is noted in there. But we could.
Or
note
just
it
possible further inspection or validation from a licensed plumber or electrician
better.
may be requested by the county inspector.
Yeah,
Yeah, a sentence as simple as that. Added
Yes,
somewhere
Councilmember
in the
Rambo?
document.
Yeah, as a city, we spend enormous amount of time making sure the septic plans, for new construction are up to snuff. And it's vital because that's that's probably by far the biggest exposure to pollution that we
Health and
have
safety, yeah.
in our entire city, and 2/3 of our city probably has septic systems. A lot of those are old. The field requirements are not as great as, are much more stringent and larger area than they used to be. And you're supposed to tank a tank every, couple of years, but it depends on the occupant, how many people are in the house. If you add it on and put more, I know I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but I'm leading up to a point. You added a room,
Mhm.
even a bathroom, nobody checked to see that the septic system is still adequate. And we've got a lot of problems out there that we could catch if we if we could insist on, if we could track the septic systems in the city just ubiquitously and insist on inspection every 3 years or some meaningful period. And we could even go by, if the house actually has 2 bathrooms and it started out with 1, then it needs to be more frequent inspection. I think this is vital to the city. So good on Ed for bringing it up and good on you for pursuing it further, but I'd like to see us, if we can't do it now, at least try our hardest to move in that direction.
yeah, well, and I don't think it's a bad thing to add into this because we could at least keep track of and make sure that, especially for people that might not know much about septic.
Yeah.
People
You
know
know?
nothing about
Yeah, we
septic.
just had.
I-
we just
I
had
would
that-
say my father-in-law owns a septic company,
No, they don't have
and
an
he
MC
says,
bill.
even with
Uh,
primary residence owners, most people don't inspect their systems. They
Right,
don't call
well,
him
that-
until
there
their
it goes.
system stops working and
Exactly
backs
right.
up.
Yep.
And then he comes in and he's having to replace the whole thing because it's been so many years since they've
Yes.
even had it looked at.
Yes.
And it's a $20,000 job and they're all freaked out, but obviously we all know that non-owner occupied owners tend to put less time into taking care of the property than people that own it and
I
live
also
there.
don't necessarily know not to flush certain things down the toilet or, you know, I don't think
And
there's
as a renter, I think you'd be pleased to know that the place you're gonna rent has got the proper health safety from water and from sewer and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think that's from a rental standpoint, it really would make sense for the owner to make sure he's got it right. Unfortunately, I think all these people have a house and move out of it because something's wrong with it. And then they rent it. And that's the sad part of it, but I think that's more true than you'd like to
But
know.
Mike said, there's the, you know, the tank is not pumped, that effluent makes its way. A lot of older systems don't have any filter whatsoever. Mine has like 3 plus a UV light plus this plus that, but it goes out into the field, plugs the field, and then you have a huge construction problem. And generally, you're supposed to allocate the space for another field.
Side of it.
But it's supposed to be 40 years down the road. And if it's only 20 years down the road, then pretty soon you're gonna be knocking the house down. And I think it's part of it's an education process, but I really, obviously I feel strongly about this, but I think whatever we can do right now to get on that path will be serving the city really well.
Yeah.
down the road.
Well, and maybe even add something on the application, is there septic well, solar panels on site, you know?
Well, you talk about electricity. I bet you there's a whole bunch of solar systems that people put on that are outside of Metro West, that the electrical lines are not even tied back to the house.
That's comforting.
Well, but people do it themselves, or they got a deal, they got a buddy who does it and they come in. So if you're gonna do the inspection, I just think that, and if they look at it, say it's questionable, then you could start something. But otherwise, you just don't have a shot at it.
Yeah.
I'd like to apologize. The form online today is $50. The one from the last time was $25.
Yeah,
The
we.
form changed a little bit. I could swear someplace else in there today, I read the new one.
We
And
went
it-
through all of
It
it.
had 2 different prices in there,
No,
so.
it's just
Through
that
all of it
mental-
before.
If I had a rental property, I'd go for the 25 because
We looked around at what other cities were,
Yeah.
other cities' fees were, and $50 seemed more in line. But did lower it to 25 if you just need to revise your occupancy permit to, say, eliminate somebody off of it, or if it's just paperwork,
Mhm.
then we did lower it for that.
I think you're doing a great job. I
Yeah.
just think that it's gonna be one of these issues where there's gonna be the little tiny questions that you can say, oh, no, we've dealt with that. Here's what it is.
Sure.
This is the answer. And
Yes,
then
when
you get a lot less of, we don't have to go back and review it.
I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
mean
it's
to
good.
cut you off there. You're
Yeah, go ahead.
done. Yeah. Does anyone here know of any municipalities that already have such a program? Like, we're tracking the septic systems to ensure that they get reasonably frequent inspection. Or is that, will we be breaking new ground?
That's a very good question. I'm unaware of.
I think it's important and it will be a feather in our cap if we can make it happen, even if it's a lot, I don't do the work, you guys do, but.
For the most part, the MSD boundary is, its westernmost edge is Route 109.
Uh-huh.
Everything inside that boundary serviced in principle by the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, which means if there is available public sewer, they'll require septic owners to basically connect when the system fails. And that's usually caught by a neighbor in a complaint. Saying all of that, there are septics inside Route 109. We have them in Wildwood.
Mhm.
And so from that perspective, we recognize that we have a partner when there is a problem with the septic inside Route 109. MSD has to come. But all in all, it's a tough, we don't have the best information, I guess is what I would say to your question.
Yeah.
And we struggle at times.
I just think it's an accident waiting to happen. And 2/3 of at least half our land is on, people are on septic fields. And there's probably 10% of them out there or 20% of them out there that have some sort of a serious problem.
It's much greater than that.
Yeah, like that that lagoon, sewage lagoon there by the school on South 109 that failed. No, it's right there by it's just west of 109, north of 100, that failed because they weren't doing the inspections that they committed to doing when it was put in, and now everybody's got a bad feeling about group septic systems, and it shouldn't be that way. But if we can do more to insist on maintenance, I think.
I don't want to belabor, but if a subdivision like Homestead Estates, which is in Ward 1, they have package treatment plant. They also have Missouri American Water Company potable water. Missouri American Water Company now takes over the plant for them and maintains it.
That's good.
And it's all part of their effort to ensure,
Raise the price.
well, and Homestead and Three Sisters Farm, they ran to it because it's just, it relieves them of the responsibility. And what better than having a public utility
Oh,
maintain the system? And so we're seeing that Radcliffe Place in Ward 6. Missouri American Water Company now maintains that facility,
Mhm.
and it's just a positive. So there's
Oh.
some progress, trust me.
That's great.
Mhm.
How about that? Thank you, though. That's
Everybody
great.
good? Okay. Well, we've got February 29th as our target date, so we'll look forward to getting that scheduled and then minor corrections made and go from there.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
So when a building inspector comes out from St. Louis County and does an inspection on, let's say, an interior remodel in the basement and finds a violation isn't corrected, they will basically send to the city the case file for municipal court to prosecute. And so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a lot of these property, let's say these reoccupancies that aren't addressed will probably end up in our court. Most of the time they don't, because the owner eventually complies. That's the process. It takes time, but that's the process. But for the most part, we should expect some of these to reach our municipal court.
I think that's fine. I just think we need to anticipate the fact that you don't put something in this big and not have to deal with the staffing to handle it. 'Cause it's a lot of work.
okay. Well, we'll move right along into the next item under planning matters, which is the Center Avenue engineered plans for Ward 8. Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this is an informational item, but it's a timely informational item because Mr. Lee and I have been receiving calls relative to the progress on Center Avenue. And I think it's very important that you know, as committee members and also members of the overall city council, that there has been progress made, but it's a very, very difficult process to get measurable progress in a very short period of time. And I'll explain why. 21 owners of right were identified by a title search conducted by our city attorney. That's 21 individuals the city had to contact, answer questions regarding why we want them to release rights to Center Avenue, and then ultimately sign a quick claim deed with a notary present. That process took a very long time, and we had a couple of holdouts. And the holdouts actually took the process from the spring of 2022 to the end of 2022, almost 9 months of additional time. Ultimately, the individuals agreed and we were able to complete the 21 quitclaim deeds. Immediately after that last quitclaim deed was recorded, which was December of 2022, we moved in to the redevelopment of the engineered plans for Center Avenue. Because as you'll recall, as we were going through all of these discussions, the individuals that now reside on Center Avenue aren't the original owners. They're new home buyers. They have new, nice homes, and they were hoping to see a town center street. The old owners wanted a rural roadway, just like it was, but with improvements to site distance, stormwater runoff, and obviously pavement condition. We tried, and over the course of the end of summer of 2023 and through the early fall of 2023, this committee authored reports that were given to city council saying, we can't do all you want. And ultimately, the city council concurred. we won't be able to do a sidewalk. It creates a real potential problem for the slopes of the existing driveways. We can't do certain stormwater improvements because then we have to do more utility relocations. And it just got very, very complicated and much, much more expensive than we thought. So we're in September, we're trying to get all of the plans finalized. Water company, Ameren, they're giving us comments as of late, as as late as December of 2023. We're still working with the utilities. And we've got to get the utilities to concur with the design before we can proceed forward to bidding. We have money set aside in 2024 for construction. We're doing our very best to get Missouri American Water Company and Ameren Missouri to give us their final comments so we can incorporate them in the plan set. Once we have them in the plan set, we need to go back out to the property owners and let them see what we've got. I'll take full responsibility. I haven't given them regular updates. I've tried to give them updates on occasion, but not regular ones, and they need to see where we're at before we proceed forward. And so we're still on target, about a year later than what we thought. We're still on target to do a construction project with funding set aside by City Council. So I'm not saying that it's been a quick process, and that responsibility lies with the Department of Planning and its director. But all I can tell you is we had 21 property owners. Several of them were in Texas. I had to call Miss Waddell, who family's been here for decades and decades. And she did a lot of the legwork for me, calling relatives and saying, do you know where this relative is? Well, he moved to there, and then we called there and they moved to there, and it just took time. And so I know the residents are impatient, and I apologize for that. But it isn't because the department hasn't tried. So we're making progress.
Okay, and this is just for an information, no action required.
If there's
Anybody have any questions, Councilmember Marshall?
This is a bigger question because are there any other streets in the city of Wildwood that could end up being developed and they expect it to become a public street after it was private? They didn't pay to have it built like any other subdivision did. Do we have any other ones that you're aware of? Because I mean, it is a nightmare.
Down here.
Well, we've got east and west, which were part of the overall plat that created the
Correct.
center. Fortunately, the developers in those instances dedicated it. They purchased the rights, they dedicated it, and we didn't have to necessarily go through the process we had to with Center Avenue. Lindy Lane is one. We're starting to see people purchasing lots, doing tear downs and wanting to build new homes. It's a private street. We're gaining easements for certain improvements as we go through, but we again, like Center Avenue, we can't require a dedication because they don't have all inclusive rights. So there's at least one more I know of, Lindy Lane. But Center Avenue, West Avenue, and East Avenue now are all publicly owned streets.
I mean, as those people were building those great big new homes, they had a misconception that street was gonna go in there by whomever the developers and just not roll back over and say the city's gonna do it.
Well, in defense of Mike Whalen, Whalen Custom Homes, Mr. Whalen dedicated the right of way that was requested by the city, and we have escrow funds for part of the construction. So Mr. Whalen was required to set those aside. Mr. Whalen was in the same position as us. He could only build part of the road because he didn't have rights to all of the road. And so the idea was, and I still believe it was an okay idea, it wasn't a great idea, but an okay idea, is why have him build partial roadway improvements and then have us probably have to remove them to get the ultimate design that would be most workable.
I agree. You guys are doing a great job. Those are the kind of things,
Great job.
well, there's no
We're
win.
trying.
There's no win for anybody in the whole deal. And unfortunately, then you look at other people who want to question their private streets, the public say, well, look what you did for that street. No, that wasn't intentional.
Councilmember Dodwell?
Okay, we've talked about the east side from 109 on Old Manchester. Part of Town Center is on the west side of 109. Have we identified any areas on that side that are gonna run into the same type of problem? And if so, can we start to figure out a strategy for us taking over those roads as a city or whatever would work for a builder or anybody, because that'll be developed eventually.
And Walnut and Maple
Yep.
Avenues,
Yeah,
two private streets.
same thing.
The major difference between west of Route 109 and east of Route 109 is availability of public sewers.
Yeah.
And we tried to tackle that out in the
Okay.
pond area years ago when Ryan Thomas was our city administrator. We had those meetings with the community about doing a neighborhood improvement district
Yeah, they didn't.
that would be primarily funded by the Rockwood School District to get Wildwood Middle School on public sewer. They did not want any of that. So at this stage, development out there, we've had interest in particular lots. When we start figuring out, we've got a small lot, we want to build a reasonably sized home. And we put a septic system in that area. The area has a high water table.
Yeah.
And it's just a real challenge to get septic to work out there. So it's kind of been the status quo. It's not to say the future doesn't hold something better. But we've worked on it for a bit and we kind of backed away as the residents told us they didn't want to fund things.
All right, so that was informational. No other questions. We'll move on to the next item, which is the relocation of Mayor's Grove and existing trash enclosures area at City Hall. Director Budich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, you all have seen this before, but it is an action item tonight because CDI, which prepared the engineered plans and bid specifications for phase one of Village Green, which was inclusive of the area of City Hall for access, parking, and the now Essent Log Cabin. It does require the relocation of the trash enclosure. That issue was presented to this committee. That issue then was forwarded to City Council with a favorable recommendation from the committee. Tonight, the department is advising you we'd like to proceed forward now. We do have an estimate from CDI. The estimate is less than $6,000 for the engineering and design and engineering for the plan. So as we can move the trash enclosure to the new location and make the necessary changes. So as we can proceed forward with Village Green phase one. So tonight I'm asking for a motion to support the contract and authorize the city administrator to proceed forward.
Does anyone like to make that motion? Councilmember Dodwell
I'll make said motion.
and Councilmember Clark, second. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just had a quick question.
Councilmember Rambo?
5750, that seems pretty cheap. What are they surveying for $2,000? I guess you can.
The location over where the existing Mayor's Grove is located,
They
that's,
build it up.
well, I'm sorry. That area, the area to the west, where we're obviously doing phase one, they did the survey work inclusive of most of the City Hall parking lot, the west side, they did not. And so that's what they're doing. And yes, the depth of the trash enclosure may require some type of small engineered solution like a retaining wall, and that's the survey work.
So they're doing some topo work and so on. So it's more than just a boundary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, yeah, and then we'll have it.
Yes.
Great.
And as you know, we're moving the Mayor's Grove over into phase one of Village Green. We'll have walking paths around the area, and then the idea is to potentially use pavers for some of those walking paths so we can honor all of the councils for each year.
Awesome. Well, with no further discussion, we've got a motion and a second. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So let's move forward with that. The next thing is just department informational, recent development trends. Does anybody have any questions or comments related to that? Seeing none, we'll move right into Parks Matters. And we'll start off with the Village Green bidding process for Ward 8, Director Budich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I had hoped to be able to present to you tonight a recommendation regarding the bid process for Village Green Phase One. It was a very, very positive bidding process. We received 8 bids from qualified contractors. The bids, other than one, Christensen Construction, were all kind of close around the range of 1.9 million to about 2.3 million. That's a good bid based upon what I've been told by our experts in the Department of Public Works. The low bidder was T Hill Construction, which is a company that also has a maintenance contract with the city of Wildwood for right-of-ways and trail corridors, et cetera. Unfortunately, they submitted a bid for the base items, but the add alternates, which there were 2, were blank. And so the second low bidder, Shell Construction, asked if that bid was incomplete due to the fact that the add alternate numbers that the other 7 bidders provided were absent. The department sent that information to our city attorney. City attorney is reviewing the bid documents which have been provided to him, and we expect to have an answer by the end of this week. So tonight, I just wanted to give you the good news. We got at least 2 bids that were within budget, even if T Hill Construction does not end up being the low bidder and the selected contractor by recommendation of the committee and action of the city council. We have a project. That's great news. Secondly, we did provide you, Melanie and I, a time frame that we would like to adhere to if at all possible, which would mean at our next committee meeting, we will have the recommended bidder for this particular project. The city attorney's review will be completed. We hope then to take the recommendation of the committee to the work session of city council in March, and then thereafter in April, have the legislation prepared, first reading at a minimum. And if not, the financial matters, it's always difficult, potentially 2 readings. And the reason being is the sooner we can get them to work, the more likely we may have a facility for Celebrate Wildwood than not. Because the bid documents had September 1st as the completion date. So we'll see. And from there, hopefully all will go well.
Arnett, I wish we had it tonight. The attorney.
Can we call City Attorney Young, get him on a conference call?
Yeah.
We
Give
talked
us
to
a
him.
recommendation.
call I have, officer.
Yeah.
Mr. Lee and I asked him about it today and he promises to have it, but like I say, there's some things, CDI, the engineering firm that completed the plans and bid specifications, thought it might be beneficial in this interim period to at least interview the 2 low bidders,
Yeah,
just to get an understanding.
yeah.
And so we're going to do that.
Okay,
We'll have
I
the
was gonna
results
ask.
for you. We'll do a little summary of our conversations with them.
Mhm.
So we won't waste the time, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Has T Hill said why they didn't bid on those or didn't left those 2 items blank?
He, after the bid closed and the other contractors left, he said, I do have one of the numbers, and he just got it over his telephone. And it was for the first add alternate. It was right in the sweet spot where everybody else was. And he just said that they didn't get to it in time, but they wanted to get the bid in.
Cool. All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing that on the 20th. City Administrator Lee?
Thank you, Chair Galani. I just wanted to, I just know how much effort the whole team here has put into this whole process, and to see this actually come to fruition, we're getting close to actually hitting the shovel to the ground. Just wanted to give a little recognition over to Mr. Vunich here, and Melanie and his whole department. They've, in the Public Works Department, the whole team has been putting blood, sweat, and tears into getting something, valuable in our community to drive commerce and drive people down here. And it seems like it's actually becoming a reality. And I know COVID absolutely smacked this project from the get-go, but yet, Mr. Vunich and his team pushed through, and we did those public input sessions right from the beginning, all through multimedia technology, whereas, we kind of broke a front there amongst West County and St. Louis County for cities that, we're communicating via Zoom and things along those lines to get that input. So to get this around the corner and also to get that large grant of $575,000 to help with the plumbing, it just speaks to the, the value that, your whole team brings. So I just wanted to give a shout out where it's due because this is excellent news since it's within budget, because the contingency here was a little scary. We are kind of sitting on pins and needles on this one, and to see a couple really good bids come in, it means we got a project here. And, like we've talked about and Joe mentioned, it's budgeted for, and I just wanted to put that spotlight on where it was due. So thank you, Mr. Vunish. Thank you, Melanie. And thank you to you all for working with the team this entire time to get this moving. We're really excited, at least on the staff side. So super excited. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you again on behalf of the committee. So great. Well, we'll look forward. Go ahead.
Real quick, a couple of
Yeah.
footnotes. I was gonna mention the grant that Melanie and Chris prepared, $575,000 coming our way. And the quirky part of all of this, after reviewing the ad alternates, the department would not recommend either of them to you. So if we have to disqualify the bid from T Hill Construction, it will be because it's incomplete, but at the end of the day, the department will be recommending not to move forward with it.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to the 20th and get all that stuff together and move forward with the recommendation at that time. So thank you very much. And we'll go on to the next item under Parks Matters, which is the Green Pines Park expansion of play nodes in Ward 5. Director Vunich.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The reason this particular item is before you tonight is kind of the correlation of several factors. The first of those is the proposed multi-use trail that the Department of Public Works submitted a grant application for East West Gateway Council of Governments and will be funded. So we have a trail constructed by the developers of the Villages at Brightleaf to its northernmost access point. We have a gap through the remaining right-of-way area of what was to be Pond Grove or Loop Road. And then we have our park. So we're going to build a trail. The trail, as you can see from the initial design, is to be to the east side of Green Pines Park. And a portion of it, unfortunately, will need an easement from the homeowners association for that common ground area. Not a large easement, but a portion of it. That's the first thing. We've got grant money for a new trail connection that's going to be very, very popular, I think. Secondly, Fisher Fricto is moving forward with a project called Villages at Bright Point. And they have a public space requirement. And we've kind of talked with them on and off about potentially doing something to enhance not only their project, but the overall Villages at Brightleaf. They met their public space requirements there, but this is an opportunity maybe to work with them and see if we could do something in terms of improving Green Pines Park, which will be the closest, let's say, play facility for that development. And then finally, Green Pines Park has been very, very popular. So the thought is building on that opportunity and that popularity, that maybe it's time to do an analysis of that third node that was pulled out of the original plans due to cost considerations. Again, the original park had 3. We had to remove it because when we got the bids back, they were just too much for us to proceed forward. And the decision was made by this committee and city council to at least to do the first 2 nodes and get something on the ground. So tonight, the department is seeking direction from the committee. Would you like the investigation to proceed forward and at least get some preliminary cost considerations for that third node? And then maybe from that point forward, take it under advisement relative to the cost, if it's reasonable or not. If it is, then proceeding to the next step. Thank you.
Can you point out here where you're talking about the third node?
Yes. Third node would be this area. And in some regards,
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure.
it's the most difficult node to remove because it was the swings, which are the most popular thing in all of our parks, it seems, regardless of how much technology changes things.
Okay. Any questions? Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, so we have a problem that there with parking anyway, right? With much we have there and what's being used. Is this gonna increase the parking somewhere? If we increase the size and invite more people to come into that?
It's an excellent question, and the reason I say that is when we were doing the public input sessions on the Green Pines Park, the community came out and said, we're all going to walk here. This isn't going to be a vehicle oriented park. Well, the first day we opened, we overwhelmed the parking spaces we built. I think there's 9 of them. No, not that many. There's probably 6 of them.
6, I think.
And we ended up, I shouldn't say we, I should say the Department of Public Works came up with a good solution. We added some on-street parking on the section of Pond Grover Parkway to the north of the park. So we were able to at least get a few additional spaces. If we add an additional node, we're probably going to have to take into account parking. I don't know where it'll go, quite frankly.
And you spoke about the swings. Have people, how many people have complained or called and requested swings in the park?
I'd have to defer to Ms. McCutcheon, one of the Ward 5 representatives. She's in a little bit more in touch with the constituents than I. I will advise that this is something that she's identified as a priority for her. And so obviously that's part of the reason it's before you tonight. I would ask Mr. Marshall, do you get any calls relative to the facility?
I get calls on the parking issue. And the fact that, you know, people want to know where to park. I do know every morning, if I'm walking that way, there's about 4 of those 6 spaces, people park there to let their kids walk to Green Pine School. And the moms or dads get out with their cups of coffee and sit there at the back of the cars. So there's, every morning there's 4, but there is only those 6 spaces. And then they let their kids walk down the sidewalks to school. So they're not using the park, they're just kind of parking there. But the parking is a challenge, you know, no doubt about it. And I've not had anybody ask about swings.
Councilmember Dodwell?
How are we gonna fund the swings, and were they in this year's budget?
I identified in the report, we do not have it programmed in the 5-year capital improvements plan. We do not have it in the 2024 capital improvements program. Although in the strategic plan, we talk about enhancements to existing facilities versus new. But again, no, there's no money, there's no funding set aside.
I'm just gonna have to say no
Yeah,
to this because
Yeah.
we've got other things that we need to get taken care of, and but Ward 4 has been able to deal with no sidewalk on portions of Strecker for 25 years and no bathroom at Anniversary Park for 15 years. This park can wait.
If they're driving anyway, they can drive to Community Park and play on the swings there.
Yeah.
Councilmember Clark?
Honestly, that's what I would tell somebody if they asked me. I should just go, it's less than a mile down the road. I mean, I just go there.
I have to agree with that. I'm just thinking that, is there any area at that back edge that wouldn't take much to put a swing set, that we could take the one from Anniversary Park that we took down and put up there for them to have a swing?
Well, there's a couple of issues. Swing sets are probably the most land. They need the greatest amount of land for the safety zone.
Mhm.
And in this particular instance, and I know you've probably all been out to the park, we worked in the most level area of the Pond Grover Parkway right of way. Now it starts to slope up, and that's where our stormwater swales are as well. So there's a lot of engineering associated with it. Even if we were to take the one we have in storage and try to place it there. If you want though, I can at least explore that if you like.
I mean, seems like if we don't have the funding built in anytime in the near future,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a considerable expense to have to try to address. And I know you mentioned Councilmember McCutcheon had received some conversation with the constituents there, but I mean, it doesn't sound, Councilmember Marshall, it doesn't seem like we've got some overwhelming prize from the residents to do something additional to this park, so.
I do have the parking people. They're pretty quick.
With that being said, I would just imagine that this could be tabled for a future.
Yeah, your time is better spent elsewhere.
So do you need something, specific action from us regarding this or?
Just don't pursue it.
But just to let you know that it's kind of on hold till at least after the trail's been installed and we start seeing them what we're doing with parking.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, that takes us to the next item, which is an all-inclusive playground process and audits of existing facilities. Director Vunich, one more time.
And then I'll turn it over to Melanie. You can hear her pleasant voice versus mine. So as you know, we brought to this committee at the last meeting, a discussion relating to an all-inclusive playground somewhere in the city of Baldwin. Not one that is partially or some instances a facility or two, but one that would be designed from the ground up to be all-inclusive and address the needs of any and all children of whatever particular need they may have. The firm Unlimited Play provided to the city an estimate. That estimate's attached to this memorandum. I think it's a very reasonable estimate and one that was presented to city council at its last meeting in January, and there were no comments. As part of that, though, the department wants that consultant to accomplish several things. And tonight, I want you, as the committee, to see those items that have been identified. And if there's something there that shouldn't be there, or if there's something missing, certainly that's what I need to hear from the committee members. In terms of that all-inclusive play area, looking at location, we kind of directed them to the Glencoe area because we have a lot of available floodplain land. And in many regards, it's one of our most popular locations relative to the trail and Glencoe City Park itself. So location. The other is that if new facility, meaning standalone, or if we use Glencoe City Park, is there a way to integrate existing equipment into the overall play scheme? So again, if we go where we have something, can we make it work and not feel like we're creating separate but equal facilities or unequal facilities? Facilities assessment, what types, how many, et cetera. So again, we're going to depend on the consultant. But if you have a strong feeling one way or another from your backgrounds or experience, please let me know. We're going to ask them for cost estimates. The opt-in and design elements for the Wildwood community. We had several people here talk about their particular situation. Certainly, we want to tap into that, make sure we understand that, and we address as much as possible what we can. And then finally, for them to identify the consultant funding assistance. Is there grants out there? Is there programs that would help us fund or assist in funding this particular end? Thereafter, as we had the discussion with the attendees, we realized that we probably need to do audits of all of our facilities. And so what the department is proposing is that the same consultant that does this audit type of effort, look at all of our park and trail corridors with facilities and fundings, just do an overall sweep. What do you think? Where do you see a problem? Where are we doing right? So if we know where we're doing right, we can replicate it elsewhere. We'd want to look at the restrooms, including changing stations, stalls, water closets, sinks, hand dryers, and accessibility components, the doors. They're all supposed to be accessible, but as we found out from the conversation with the attendees, those changing tables, there is a certain weight limit, and if you have an older child, they just don't work. And I certainly don't want anybody putting their child on the bathroom floor. So, water fountains, gates and other security features, picnic tables. We have accessible picnic tables at all our facilities. Do we have enough? I want them to check that. Pavilion areas, including kiosks and display boards, are they reasonably placed so people can see them? And if not, we need to basically address that. And then the Braille component. Parking lots with accessible spaces, icons and signage. And then finally, access paths, getting from the parking lots to the playground, et cetera. So these are the things I want them to check. Did we miss anything? And that's what I need from you. So all tonight, I'm just asking to make sure these lists, I think, are pretty inclusive, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything that you know about that we need to address. Thank you.
Councilmember Dodwell?
One thing that I would hope that we could accommodate, and I was glad to hear you speaking about using Glencoe Park, is I know the parents here were talking about having a specific facility for their children, but I also think it's important for other children to see children with special needs in an environment that they're playing around or with. I guess my point being that if we can put it into an existing park situation where they have the specialty equipment, but they're playing just like the rest of the kids play to their capabilities. I feel like that's really important so that we can teach our younger kids how to deal with handicapped individuals or those that need a little bit more assistance. Just an opinion. so.
Councilmember Clark?
I think just to, and this may already be addressed in your, but I didn't see for parking.
Okay.
Because some of this would be not only the children who have disabilities, but, for example, deaf parents that have a child, they're called CODAs, child of deaf adults. And making it accessible to the parents who have disabilities is important too, so that they can bring their child. Making sure that the equipment is non-static producing equipment. Because if a child has a cochlear implant, for example, any implants, static electricity interferes with that. You have down the grants. I wrote down that for grants, private donations, foundation grants. YMCA was going to do something like this at one time. The signage, when looking at the signage, to put this on the level of somebody that's in a wheelchair is also very important, because sometimes we put the signage very high. I remember the signs for the waterless hand cleaners were so high that, I mean, a person in a wheelchair that was coming through would not be able to read it. So putting it at a eye level, and signage for the children, if it could be in picture form instead of words. And the shade in the area, a lot of children have a problem with light and disabilities like autism and different disabilities, light will affect them. The width and the slopes of the pathways, to go beyond ADA expectations on those would be very helpful. And the surface treatments, I didn't see that on here, but surface treatments of, to audit that to see if we have the right surface for wheelchairs or somebody with a walker or.
That was in there. And that was in there and light was in there. But,
Then places for both the parallel play, like Katie was talking about, but also for more quiet play, because some children need to just play by themselves. That's about all I have.
There are several I didn't have on my list, so thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Rambo?
yeah, Price is Right is we're gonna get a lot of good data from these folks. I fully support it. Philosophically, it seems to me that we ought to approach this from the perspective of figuring out how to include kids in every playground, kids of various abilities in every dang playground that we have. And if it costs some money to do it, we ought to do it instead of, because I think you're right about whoever said that about, okay, this is the place where the handicapped kids play and we want to try to our best, very best to get away from that. And I think if we make that clear from up front, they can do that. And I would also like to see, like Teresa knows it, the rest of us don't really know it. I'm learning a lot about these kinds of issues that I didn't know before. These folks are experts. If they can just give us like a compilation of, like the list, I'm sure they will have an even more comprehensive one by the time is all is said and done. I would like to see that, with definitions or examples or something like that, or it doesn't have to be elaborate and they don't have to spend any time on it, but I'm sure they have it. And I personally would like to see it. I think it might help us sell it to the community and the rest of the council if we go ahead and do it now. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah,
It's a
some
good idea.
picture would be good.
Council Rodberg?
So I like Councilmember Dodwell's suggestion about adapting all of the parks so that they can be used by all special needs children, but we probably want to be somewhat vigilant that we don't end up with a situation where each park only has one thing that a special needs child can
Yeah.
use.
Thank you.
Well, I look at this as our first step in this direction. We're not gonna be able to afford and or plan for just yet updating equipment in all of our parks, but this is our first step.
Making
Let's-
one park the go-to and then we can see how that.
And then we can, as equipment begins to fail in City Park, then, okay, how do we reassess what equipment we're gonna put in there to replace it? And what kinds of things do we need to be considering?
Councilor Clark?
I just want to thank the department. You guys have done a lot of work on this and this touches my heart deeply because it's very personal to me that, because although my son's deaf, he doesn't have, I just tell him he's not disabled. He can do whatever. But there are things like he could never slide on the slides because he had a cochlear implant and the static electricity would build up. And there's just many things that a child with disabilities has to stand back and watch the other kids do. And I just thank you so much for trying to include them and make all kids know that they're all as special.
Some of these changes need to happen anyway, like the shade stuff is a great example, because we've been agonizing over shade at,
Yeah.
I forget
All
the
of our
park
parks.
even, but we need to do that like stage one, so.
No, I think it's a great idea. Great job on bringing especially from the residents that we had that provided input on our last meeting, that you guys did a great job incorporating their requests, the feedback they brought. Councilmember Marshall?
So I guess the big challenge with the Glencoe Park, we still can't address the restroom problem, right? I mean, I think that's been one of the problems all along. It's a great location, a great area, but you would still have to use portable facilities. And I know you can get them handicap accessible, but in a long-term plan, the whole idea of having water and sewage there is kind of the elephant in the room, right?
Well, it is to a certain degree. So Tom Lee, our city administrator, and the departments of Public Works and Planning, were adamant with the Missouri American Water Company when they changed routes and pulled the line out of Glencoe and to follow Route 109, then further south, Al Foster Memorial Trail, that they put a Y in where our trail goes into Glencoe so that it would be an easy connection to Glencoe. So from the department's perspective, if we do an unlimited all-inclusive playground in Glencoe, I will probably ask as an ad alternate with permission of the committee to see about extending water. And once we get water there, it opens up a whole range of opportunities.
think that's great. Just a couple other comments, and
Yeah.
this is just one of just way more high level than what we probably want to get to. I know that people to partner with parks in order to do that. So the Lions Club in Missouri and all over the country
Mhm.
do these big grants. But right now I know we're working on one with Cardinal Care
Mhm.
and the Y for a facility down in South St. Louis, but they want $500,000 from, I mean, we raise a lot of money. We as a state, and so if you donate your money to Lions International, that money comes back as grants. And they put one down in Sykeston, it's $500,000. So there are organizations out there that are doing that. And I know that Cardinal Kids Care, is it Cardinal Kids Care? Is that? the-
Cardinal Care.
Cardinal Care.
But they're the one that came to the Lions Club and said, hey, would you work with us and the YMCA to build this? But they're looking out, they wanna, who's gonna maintain it for the next 5 years? So I mean, it's just a big project. So I don't know where to tell you to go, but I know that those between the Y and Cardinals Kids Care, I mean, there are organizations out there that are really trying to do the very same thing. I don't know that they'd be interested in splitting it out all to different parks. The ones I'm familiar with in Sykeston and one in Kansas City, it was totally set up as a all-inclusive park between the city and the Lions Club. And that's why they put the grant money in to do it. But I know maybe the Rotary, I mean, there could be all kind of other organizations out there that might be able to help, but
Well, I would suggest going back to the individuals that were here at our last meeting and asking them what kinds of resources they might be familiar with for obtaining grants, and if not, even
There's a-
Teresa Clark.
Yeah.
Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, they do have, and some of them have their own 501c3s.
Mhm.
Some of these women that I talk to,
Mhm.
they have their own because they've started it with their child. And Queenie Park is doing just this right now and within their park. So they probably have a lot of things and suggestions they can make to us.
Mhm.
But as we're thinking about the restrooms, I think it would be a really good idea that when we do plan a restroom, if we had like the two normal restrooms we have plus a family restroom, and that family restroom could have the adult size changing table.
Mhm.
kind of-
One last thing, and then
Yeah.
I promise I'll be. Some of the results of the audit, I think, are going to be immediate items like the changing tables. There's just a few $100s in the scheme of things relative to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for new park facilities. So you'll get that list of audits, and with your cooperation, I'd like to think we can prioritize those and start making an immediate impact just in terms of some of the locations and improving the situations.
Director Finch, are you looking for action from the committee to allow
Need a
to
motion.
proceed with that, or you just need?
City council has already provided that, and you provided me what I needed is just that input that, like I said, there are several things that were mentioned tonight by all of you that weren't on this list. They'll be added to the list, and this list will go to our consultant.
Look forward to seeing their feedback on that. So thank you, everybody, for the good discussion. Next on the list is Portner Park. Ms. Ripito, the planning process and selection of task force members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as you likely recall from the December meeting, the city council authorized the establishment of an ad hoc committee to assist with the initial master planning process for Portner Park. The composition of the group was lowered from 11 to 7 and consisting of 2 Ward 6 council members, 1 representative from either Homeowners Association of Hankin Valley Estates or the estates at Deer Hollow subdivisions, because they would be most impacted. 2 at-large members from Ward 6 and 2 at-large residents selected from the other 7 wards. So 2 members between all the 7 wards. These members would serve on the ad hoc committee, but they would also be expected to be available on an as-needed basis in the future. For the time being, the department will collect all available existing resources on the property and its characteristics, which will form the base map and accompanying items, and also help identify what additional information we need. This will then be utilized in the next steps of the planning process, which start with introducing the property to the advisory group and begin assessment. Via public input sessions, site visits, online participation, things of that nature, and then assessing said comments until the completion of the master plan. As you may have noted, the formation of the advisory committee is key in this multi-step process. To date, the department isn't aware of any applications that we've gotten that indicate any kind of interest in this ad hoc committee. And thus tonight, the department is respectively requesting the committee members begin the selection process with
Respective partners.
right, respective partners. Good job. Thank you, Joe. Of the city council, and make recommendations to the mayor for potential appointees to this advisory group. Similar to other agenda items, the department would note that the next meeting where these individuals could be appointed by Mayor Boland would be February 12th. Therefore, there is a limited amount of time in order to accomplish this process. So these suggestions would need to be provided to the mayor by late January or the first week of February in order to make these appointments on that agenda. And if that timeline can't be met, then the kickoff meeting of the committee would be moved to April or May rather than, being able to get it done in March. So the department's eager to get this process moving and would appreciate your assistance. And this concludes the department's presentation, but Mr. Brunich and I are available for any questions.
Mr. Roberto, so are you looking for members of the committee to submit nominees to the city for consideration by the mayor, or are you looking for us to facilitate those residents to apply directly to the city?
I believe it was at the direction of the council that the committee should handle the selection process for the appointees to this ad hoc committee, if I'm not mistaken.
So I would advocate, I guess, Councilman Rambo, do you and Jaxie have the designees for the two other Ward 6
We
members?
can certainly do that. We're on the committee already. I know of somebody. Rob probably knows of somebody. He lives, he's a half mile away. As the crow flies, he's closer, and I'm about a half mile away as the crow flies.
So you got the two Ward 6 folks. and
So
then
we
the
already have,
HOA.
we already have two folks that we can recommend. It's just a matter of to whom do we send those names?
But you also need an HOA member for,
Yes, an
subdivision,
HOA from
right?
either subdivision,
From which-
and then two at-large members that are not in Ward 6.
subdivision?
The Henkin Valley Estates
Okay.
or the estates at Deer Hollow.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I would say that,
three.
In addition, okay, so
Yeah, so you guys.
either or though, right?
yes,
Just one.
Yeah.
just one between
One
the two.
from one of those two and then two Ward 6.
Correct, and I would point them in the direction of the online form to serve on boards or commissions. They can fill that form out and that goes straight to the city clerk, who would then put that before the mayor for suggestion.
Will do. I've seen those subdivisions in print. Is that in, is that in the attachment to this?
It's in
general?
the reports.
Yeah.
And the at-large members from any of the other 7 wards, do those have to be just residents or council members or
Yeah, 2 at-large residents selected from the other 7 wards,
it could
so,
be anybody?
yes,
So
that is correct.
I'll go this route first. Is there anybody on this committee that would like to be an at-large member for that?
I thought the intent was to try to get residents and not council members because.
Well, that's
this
why I
kind of
asked the
group-
question, to
Yeah,
see.
I think it's a good question.
Well, if we put that to bed, if nobody on here wants to do that because we want to go to residents, then I guess the next thing would be for people on this committee to talk to other folks from any of the wards that would potentially be interested.
Yeah, and there are things like the Historic Preservation Commission. Those are just residents. They just happen to serve. Good news is it's kind of a captive audience. They're already interested in serving and we can probably get this
I would
done real
advocate
quick.
that we nominate Councilmember Flasher and Bartoni since they don't have time.
It's like having to take the minutes at the meeting when you showed up late. Yeah.
Councilmember Clyde?
So, I mean, the Coffee with the Mayor has a lot of people come that are
Mm.
my age, are retired and have time to work on this. And I think that if there was something at the next coffee that said, we're looking for, this list of people, if anyone is interested, because they are definitely interested in the city. They come to the, there's some that would be more, right for the job than others, but, there might be a lot of interest in that group of people.
Can we post it on the website too?
We haven't,
The idea was, or at least my concern was, I didn't want to preclude the pairs of council people in the at-large wards from not being able to pick someone. But if you want us to publicly advertise it, we certainly can do that.
I
Why
think
don't
there
you
might
give
be
us
a whole
until-
lot of,
Why don't you give us until through this coming weekend?
Sure.
To talk with our peers in the wards and, or in
Any-
our ward. and
Anybody
see
we
what-
want, we facilitate them to go to fill out the form online.
Does Megan keep the list of, I mean, we used to keep a list of people who wanted to serve in different committees.
Yeah,
Does she have a list of? I used to publish it. I just thought it was important for everybody in the council to know
yeah.
that.
mhm.
But I
I'm sure
mean,
we do. I don't know.
there could be people on there who said, I'd like to serve in any capacity or whatever, but if there
Yeah.
are people who've already asked, that might be
Mhm.
one solution.
there's so many committees now that the mayor gobbles them up and appoints them as soon as they come in. I mean,
Not
we get
always,
notice.
not always.
I don't know, there.
Don't we get email from,
When he
every
appoints
single
When he
somebody.
appoints
when he
somebody,
appoints
then
it says, Megan usually sends application to serve on boards and commissions, and she sends it routinely as email. It doesn't say anything about this person's gonna go on a committee.
Oh, I never saw that.
Yeah, she sends it them all.
she sends it out.
For ones that are not assigned to
Yeah,
something or
the
not being
ones that aren't
appointed.
assigned, that
Oh.
just volunteers,
Never
so
mind.
And
that,
they immediately
that
get
would be a good
appointed.
suggestion is to go talk with Megan tomorrow and find out who's on the list that she keeps.
That aren't Ward 6.
So really, we only need two.
Right.
Jaxie and Rambo can handle the additional 3 from Ward 6 besides themselves.
Yeah,
So if we can check with Megan's list and then the rest of the members of the committee talk to folks in your wards between
Yeah.
now and the weekend.
yeah.
And
then
just
if nothing
have them
comes
go to the
back-
website and fill out the application.
yeah, and if there are multiple applications for, outside of Ward 6, it gives the mayor, more choice between applicants if one's more qualified.
We'll send you the list of volunteers that are interested tomorrow so that you can take a look at it as you talk to your peers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
As I say, we'd like to get started, but if it takes an extra month or so, that's fine, but we just like to get the momentum.
Yeah. I think we should
When are we
probably
gonna
be
start
able to
knocking
get
that
it
thing
taken
down?
care of.
Thanks.
Town council's asking me that too. And so, as you know, we're gonna demolish the existing single-family residence due to the mold. I had to get something from John Young. He had told me that we could proceed forward. I needed something in writing, because obviously if we knock down something based upon him telling me and then we lose the property because we violated the restrictions, so, but yes, I got that last week.
Okay.
Put it back together, Tom. Got a follow-up call for you, Tom. Put
Yeah.
it back together.
You just never recover from, so.
All right, next on the list is sound and lighting contract for 2024 recreation event schedule. Ms. Ripto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I will be brief with this one. As you're aware, the city provides several entertainment events attended by thousands of people throughout the year. And to make these events special for the attendees, the city provides food, drink, entertainment, which requires a number of partnerships, consultants, and companies to make that magic happen. Paul Finch Audio has been providing lighting and sound for the city's concerts for several years now. His company and the people that work for them have always exceeded the expectations with, the city team members, the bands, as well as the crowds, in these events. They've, been very good to work with. They also provide the same services for some of the largest concert venues in the St. Louis region, so. So as in past years, the department requested a proposal for them to continue providing the lighting and sound services that would cover a total of 6 concerts planned for 2024. The 3 Music on Main concerts, 1 during back to school, and then 2 concerts during Celebrate Wildland. The total amount of the proposal is $20,000, which is $5,200 more than in 2023, but accounts for increased labor and insurance costs. We've seen a lot of cost increases over a lot of areas. But the department remains very pleased with Paul Finch Audio and believes he'll continue to provide excellent service to the city. And therefore tonight, the department is recommending this proposal be considered favorably by the committee with the recommendation of support to City Council for its acceptance and passage. And with that, that concludes the department's presentation, but we are here for any questions you may have.
Anybody like to make the motion?
Sure.
Councilman
No,
McDonald?
I was just gonna make a motion that we move forward with the contract being presented to council for final approval.
Okay,
Next
got a
meeting.
second?
Second it.
Councilman Marshall, any discussion on the motion? Councilman Clark?
I have one question. So this lighting, this isn't the same lighting that is the stage lighting, or is it stage light? It is stage
Yes.
lighting. Just to make note that at least one of the events have it where there's no strobe lighting, no flashing lighting. So that and to promote that as such, so people with those kind of issues. You know, we talked about this last year, I think.
We
Yeah.
did talk about it last year. I talked to Mr. Finch. We're in a better position this year because we'll pitch it before the season starts. But many of the bands didn't necessarily want to not have lighting. And so as part of their contracts, we can certainly try to address it better this year than kind of midstream last year. But I remembered, obviously, I had a conversation. Didn't necessarily work out in our favor last year, but we'll see what we can do this year.
All right, well, that's discussion.
Just a dumb question. The guy that we rent the stage from, how much is the stage per event?
It's about $2,500.
Yeah, I thought it was actually higher than that, but that's good. So sometime down the road, when we have something, we would eliminate the stage anyway.
Eliminate the stage, we can eliminate the generator and the electrical service cost. The sound and lighting will always come with.
Yeah, and you want to keep it current. I don't think you'd
yeah.
ever want to own that.
Yeah, I don't.
Councilmember Marshall's planning a
Sit-
concert in his
hire a full-time
backyard.
person.
Councilmember Rambo?
And the hope is that we'll roll from phase 1 of Village Green directly into phase 2, like immediately, and fund it for another couple mil and get the amphitheater. Is that phase 2, I guess is the question.
The amphitheater, the oval is part of phase 1, the structure,
Yeah, the structure, right?
that's
The
phase 2.
band shell.
which, And yes, I hope to replicate what we did in Community Park. We opened Community Park Phase 1. It was so popular. People wanted to see more, so we were able to almost immediately go into Phase 2.
Yeah, right.
Then
That
into
way.
Phase 2A. Now we're at that top of that limit where the next phase would have to go to the voters.
Is it a couple mil for a stage, for the actual stage and stuff? Is that what?
Well, and yeah, it's replicated here what we did in Community Park. Phase 1 brings in all the utilities, the things you don't see,
Yeah.
the things you can't play on,
Mm.
so to speak. But yes, Phase 2 will actually be less expensive.
And we get more bang for the buck because it's visible and people will, yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's a great way to do it. So did the drive-in movie night, that was well accepted and well attended and everybody liked it, and we're getting closer to the anniversary of Route 66. Are we planning another one of those, and is that this part of this contract? Or
Uh,
was it different lighting?
It's a different, we got the, we obtained the stage from a different stage. The
Screen.
Screen.
projector from a different contractor. Remember, we used the side of the theater.
Yeah, yeah.
As the screen.
So it was cheap. It was relatively
Yeah,
inexpensive.
very expensive.
So is that in the works or do we have to remember to plan for it here soon or?
No, Ms. Keefe remembers to plan for it and reminds me often about it.
Okay.
So It's just finding the appropriate location.
Yeah, because construction will be starting hopefully on the
Yes,
apartment complex that we've been waiting for
yes.
many years in
Well,
town center.
let's vote on this matter first, because we've got the motion and the second, so. Any further discussion on the contract for the lighting? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Okay, so that gets us through that part. And then the last two items on park matters, which are for informational, are the in-person virtual recreation programs, the facility reservations. Does anybody have any questions or concerns related to those items? Councilmember Clark?
I just want to know, when is my favorite event, the plein air?
It is May,
Is
first Saturday in May. I can't remember the date. Here, I can get it in a second.
and the Hometown Heroes, that's due by the 15th of February. Right?
It is due by the 15th of February, for that is our normal deadline. However, we've been discussing having potentially a second deadline to kind of help promote like new in 2024 and potentially doing another order, you know, by August 1st or so that people can get on for Veterans Day. And then maybe do some kind of special where those banners are included, you know, for the next year. So, yeah, so that's in discussion.
Obviously, the first brush, it wasn't as successful as I think we all hoped in this room. We did that holiday promotion. I think we ended up with,
One more banner during the holiday promotion.
and so one of the things we've also talked about, and we'll bring this all back to you as we've kind of crystallize our ideas, is maybe bringing some of them up to the intersection of Route 100 and Kayla Road, not necessarily the banners themselves with the honorees, but just an advertisement of it, so to speak, so people see it, and maybe those that don't go down Manchester Road regularly will be, oh, what's that? Kind of explore it. But
Point them in the direction of the display and, you know, also have more barcodes. Order yours now or something like this, just to kind of push it some more. And we're working on an article in the Gazette, and once that's completed, we'll be able to use that for social media as well. And we've also been discussing lowering the prices of the sponsorship banners permanently, just because we think they might be beyond what a lot of our small businesses can afford. And so there's some changes ahead.
also, just to remind you, sometime here in the spring, we need to talk about the wall.
Oh, the wall that heals. Yes.
Yeah.
Talked about 2025 then here.
Do we have a welcome packet for new businesses like we do for new residents? Because that should go in there.
Mr. Lee?
We do currently have like it's kind of like a guide to opening a business, but it's not an intro packet. But typically when a new business does come in, first thing I do is reach out to that individual and set up a one-on-one meeting with them, so they kind of get the intro packet of me, if you will. But in
I'm
that
just saying,
case,
Here's how
Yeah.
you can participate in our community, and one of the ways is a banner that's really cheap and it will advertise your business. And if they're just opening a new one, it makes sense to spend $100 or whatever the heck it is to get the word out there. But
that's not a bad idea at all. I think we could repurpose our new resident packets and have that as a delivery. We do have the government side on one side of it. Typically we put Wildwood business promotional materials on the other side. So in this case, maybe it's just focused in on the ways the businesses could get it, participate in our city events. So that's a great idea, and we could definitely take that into advisement.
So Colonel Jaxie is, his father's a retired, Air Force guy. His son is currently in the Air Force. And, he did his career there, but he's so damn modest, I can't get him to fuck up the photos. And his wife will do it, but only if he consents. And so, I'm thinking about paying for it myself and just doing it and suffering the consequence, because she said she'd give me the pictures. What's what's it cost for that?
For the hero banners, it's
Yeah.
$150. Which is for both displays, and then at the end of the display, the city will either keep the banner and store it, and then it's $60 to renew it the next year, which just covers the cost of having, installation costs for both holidays. And yeah,
I've been working him forever. I just wanted you to know that
yeah.
there's some interest out there, but most people
Well,
are
and in
just way too modest to put their face
in
on it.
lieu of a photograph, we can use the military seal and just have their name and the time served.
Oh, sure, yeah, the Air
Yeah.
Force, emblem, medallion, whatever. it's called.
Yeah, we had that concern as well, and some people might not like their photo, or some people might not have a photo available. So, yeah, so we can always use the military seal for their particular branch.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the discussion there. That brings us to the next item, which is executive.
Mike.
Just a couple.
Councilmember
So
Mike.
just a suggestion on that. There's two places in the city where people set hours each week. Starbucks and St. Louis Bread. If we had some type of a sign, I mean, that would meet our requirements, that you could sit down at the end of the, in the grassy section. I mean, they have the one where they put their sign up, but just, more if know a veteran, want to honor a veteran. Starbucks and St. Louis Bread, there's always a dozen cars there.
Mhm.
And they gotta wait, they gotta read it. So if there'd be a way we could do it, I think it'd be a great way to try to get more interest in that. I don't know what we have to give them to allow us to do that, but just a lot.
We've got the right of the way on the roads that people are sitting staring at until they get to.
I mean, you sit there and you think, oh, okay, what, when they get their phone out, but it might be a way to look at it.
Good news, Tom Lee, our city administrator, knows R.L. Jones purchased the Starbucks franchise here in Wildwood. And they're obviously Wildwood Square, they're great folks to work with.
Mhm.
So at least Starbucks, we have somebody we know. Bread company might be a little more difficult given its size, but we can certainly start.
Just a thought. I mean, it's, people sit there and you constantly, if you walk in, cause you can get stuff faster. And you look at, wow, all those people are lined up, and maybe be a place to put something, just, even if it's just a QR code, where they could get more information, so.
Do we own the sidewalks?
Not off the right of way.
Okay.
Well, let us know what you find out with that. Thank you for that suggestion, Councilmember. Executive session matters, we don't have any. So we'll pass on that. Not ready for action. We've got the items there. Nothing to do with that, right?
Correct, sir.
Other matters for consideration, we have none. We'll just turn this into miscellaneous real quick. So Councilmember Dodwell.
Just real quickly, since we have our city administrator here, what's the status on our part-time hire for the parks and our economic development manager?
So we are making a lot of good progress, and we should have an exciting announcement regarding our arborist vegetation specialist position here soon. We did actually just bring on someone for, if you all do not had not noticed, we had lost Michelle as our admin for Public Works. Bree has filled in that role for us. She was one of our court clerks, but she's moved upstairs, so that's great news. On top of that, we are making moves on the arborist position, and we should be interviewing the communications and economic development position here soon. That being said, it hasn't gotten quite the traction that I was expecting. We're still waiting for a couple. I'm looking for some knockout applications for that. That job is gonna need to be someone that can really take the bull by the horns and be a self-starter. But
Okay.
overall, it looks like we're getting closer to the interview side of it.
Okay. Thanks.
Councilmember Rattenberg.
Well, I was going to make a motion to adjourn because I didn't realize there were some things on the backside of the sheet, so I will withdraw that temporarily.
Councilmember Clark.
Just one thing, since we're talking about disabilities a lot, I still have concern with, at the end of all of our meeting notices, our agendas, it says that if you have any needs, special needs, or you need accommodations, that to let the city clerk know 48 hours in advance. However, our timing for making updates to the agenda is 24 hours. And it makes it really hard for somebody that has to let you know, say they need a sign language interpreter 48 hours. They don't know everything that could be on the agenda. So it would just be, I think, reasonable to ask that it's changed to 24 hours.
Thank you, Ms. Clark, Councilmember Clark. In this case, we can run it by the city attorney just to make sure there's not a specific reason why it says 48. And then I'll talk with our city clerk too to see if those accommodations could adequately be made, but I don't think there should be too much of an issue.
Anybody else have anything? Nope. All right, so
Two
that,
months, over 2 minutes.
next meeting would be Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. So I think we brought that date up multiple times tonight on stuff we're gonna be talking about that we discussed tonight. And with that, closing remarks, I would just say thank you, everybody, for your attendance and your participation. We always have great conversation and discussion during this meeting, so it's something to look forward to. So thank you once again, and thank you to the department, Ms. Roto and Director Vinich for all of your hard work and bringing everything on the agenda to the table for us, and City Administrator Lee as well. I'm sorry. I'm just staring right at him over here. So you're in my periphery. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Rattenberg, seconded by Councilmember Rambo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Careful driving.
Don't know how you do it, Mike. Man,
Bye,
amazing.
everyone. Have a good
Amazing.
night.
Precise.
Went over 3.
Yeah, no, that's like the worst, so
That's probably incredible. Yeah.